Hi, I'm Raylene. My parents stole the $1 million trust my grandfather left me and gave it to my sister instead. They said I was strong enough to figure it out. But they didn't just take the money. They took my future, my name, even my place in the family. And 12 years later, I sold them the house they thought they earned. How do you forgive a family that never saw you as theirs? The city was quiet for once. From the 28th floor, all I could hear was the faint hum of a distant ferry gliding across Lake Sammamish. Its reflection fractured across the water like broken glass. I didn't move. I just stood there, one hand wrapped around a mug that had long gone cold, and watched the lights flicker on in a house that wasn't mine, but used to feel like it should have been. 12 years. That's how long it had been since I last stepped into my parents' house. Since the night they handed me an erasure and called it a favor. That house, the one they're so close to closing on tomorrow, it's not theirs. Not really. They don't know that yet, but they will. Legal confirmed the 10 a.m. Jolene's voice came through the intercom, smooth as always. I didn't answer right away. Just stared out at the waterfront a moment longer before saying, "Good, let's make it memorable." 16 years ago, I would have killed to hear my father say he was proud of me, just once. Now, I didn't need pride. I needed clarity, and maybe a little revenge. 12 years ago, it was steak night. At the Glen estate, that meant someone had something awful to announce and wanted red meat to soften the blow. My father never delivered bad news on chicken. "I hope you understand," he said, placing his knife down with a kind of finality. "We need to support Marley right now. She's trying to figure things out." Marley, my sister, the creative soul, she dropped out of her second graduate program that month. Something about energy healing and sacred breathwork. "You're always the strong one, Raylene," my mother chimed in, folding her napkin like it was a moral compass. "You'll land on your feet. You always do." They said it like they were handing me a compliment. What they handed me instead was the announcement that the trust fund left to me by my grandfather, my only safety net, the one thing that gave me choices, was being reallocated to Marley because she needed a fresh start. I said nothing. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I finished my wine, excused myself, and went straight to the one man who might give me answers. The next morning, I was at Mr. Feldman's office before he even had his second coffee. He had been managing the family's finances for over 20 years. He looked like a man who had witnessed betrayal, but never enjoyed being part of it. "I'm sorry, Raylene," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Your name was removed as primary beneficiary 3 weeks ago, by legal instruction." "Whose legal instruction?" "Your parents," he said quietly. "They have control until you're 25. You turn next month, but the paperwork's already been executed." There it was. Not just the theft, but the orchestration, the meticulous removal of my future before I even had time to claim it. I walked out of his office and into the street, the sunlight hitting my face like a slap. That night, I packed up my one-bedroom rental and sent one email. Effective immediately, I'll be transitioning to independence. They didn't respond. Back in the present, I turned from the window. On my desk sat a thick folder labeled Mitchell Estate Transaction Final. All the signatures were ready. Just mine remained. My parents were finally closing on their dream home, the one they'd bragged about for months. A Georgian colonial on the lake with marble floors and a wraparound porch, their ultimate statement piece. They didn't know the seller was me. They didn't know the agent was a shell company I created 5 years ago. They didn't know they were walking into a closing orchestrated by the daughter they traded for another. "Do you want me to prep the welcome packet?" Jolene asked, voice cool but loaded with implication. I clicked the pen in my hand and leaned back in my chair. "No," I said. "Let's see if they recognize what they sold for a daughter." The envelope was thick, cream-colored, stiff with weight and hope. I remembered the sound it made sliding from the mailbox onto the tile, that soft slap like something final. My name was written in neat black script, Raylene Carter, accepted. London had always been the dream, not because it was far, but because it felt like freedom. A full ride to one of the top international law programs. My ticket out, stamped and sealed. I sat with the letter in my lap for hours. Just touching it made my chest tighten in the best way, until I remembered I had no money to go. The trust fund Grandpa Harold set up, it was supposed to be mine, specifically earmarked for education. He was clear about that. I'd heard him say it aloud more than once, when I was 16, when I graduated early, when I got into college 2 years ahead of schedule. "She's a builder," he said. "Give her bricks, not decorations." But those bricks had been taken, quietly, legally. "You're asking me for what's already been reallocated," my father said when I brought up the tuition. He didn't even pause to think about it. "To who?" I asked. "To the family," he replied, as if that word could justify everything. Mom didn't say anything. She sipped her chamomile tea, her fingers tapping the rim of the cup in that rhythm that always meant she wanted the conversation over. "I thought Grandpa set it aside for me," I said, quieter this time. "He told me himself." Dad gave a shrug that managed to be both condescending and final. Harold was a good man, but he didn't always understand the dynamics. "Marley needs support. You'll land on your feet. You always do." It wasn't just dismissive, it was erasure. Like I was a program that had run its course, no longer needing funding, attention, or care. Later that week, I walked into Ronald Keene's office, the family lawyer. He wore a different kind of suit now, looser, shinier, the kind that said comfort had long replaced conscience. "I understand this is difficult," he said, sliding a folder across the table. "But your grandfather amended his will 6 months before his passing. You were removed as a direct beneficiary." He said it like it was a courtesy, not a sentence. I took the folder, opened it, read each page slowly. On the signature line, where Grandpa's looping H should have been, the ink was uneven, slanted, shorter. It wasn't his handwriting. I looked up. Ronald adjusted his tie, then pretended to read something else. He didn't meet my eyes. "I see," I said. Then I stood up and left. I didn't call my parents, didn't confront them. What was there to say that wouldn't make it worse? Back in my apartment that night, I laid the London letter on my kitchen counter next to the updated will. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just opened the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet, placed both inside, and closed it with a soft thud. I didn't burn the offer. But that night, a part of me stopped existing. The file sat in my inbox with a name that didn't scream importance. 12.2014 _VK _calllog _keen.wav. No subject line, no note. Just a quiet forward from Jolene with one word: listen. I closed my door, hit play, and sat perfectly still. Victor Glenn's voice filled the room, low and clipped. "She's ambitious, cold. She doesn't need this. We're reallocating to Marley. I want it clean. No trace she was ever in the line." Ronald Keene's voice followed, oily and hesitant. "Are you sure, sir?" Harold was very direct. My father cut him off. "Harold's dead. I'm not." The silence that followed wasn't technical. It was deliberate. The end of a transaction. I didn't flinch. I didn't rewind. I simply saved the file under a folder I had labeled 3 years ago. Legacy, real. It was never just about the money. It was about being erased. 10 years ago. The gala was polished, down to the coordinated napkins. I'd flown in from New York at my mother's insistence. "Just be presentable. Smile a little," she'd said. "You're good at pretending things are fine." I stood near the back while Linda Fay took the stage in her pearl earrings and tailored blue. "We're thrilled to thank an anonymous donor," she beamed, "whose brilliance and generosity made tonight possible." On the projector behind her, my face appeared next to one of my press quotes: "Women don't wait for legacies, they build them." Not a single person turned to look at me. I remember the sharp sound of my champagne glass clinking against the tray when I set it down and walked out before dessert. I never asked her why. I already knew. Back in the present, I dragged the image from that night, a screenshot from the gala where my quote floated over my own shoulder, and dropped it into the same folder as the call recording. Then I renamed the folder Evidence, not Emotion. What they took from me wasn't opportunity. It was credibility. They didn't just cut me out of the future. They used the shell of me to build their narrative. I was a name on paper, a smile in a slideshow, a placeholder for generosity they could claim but never understand. I printed the transcript. It slid out of the machine with the same sound the London envelope once made. Jolene knocked once. "Need anything before I head out?" I shook my head. "Just this." The final page landed on my desk. I stared at the bottom line where Victor's words were typed in clean font. No trace she was ever in the line. I slipped the papers into a manila envelope, sealed it, and wrote 3 words across the front in black ink. "Not yours anymore." The ballroom was too cold. I told the organizers the temperature was fine, but I regretted it now. The air pricked at my skin as I stepped up to the podium under a spotlight that felt just a little too bright. The International Legal Summit was where names went to become institutions. I was here to represent what it looked like to endure, to build alone, to win quietly. And I did. The speech went flawlessly. Applause followed like a rhythm I had conducted. I nodded once, stepped back, and scanned the room full of polished suits and open notebooks. Then came the question. "Miss Carter," a reporter said, standing near the back, voice smooth and practiced. "Is it true your mother, Linda Fay, runs the Lake Sammamish Foundation? Are you involved in her work?" The silence stretched like smoke. My hand twitched at my side. I could hear it, the collective inhale of the room, the curiosity behind every set of eyes. They weren't asking about my firm, they were asking about my blood. I smiled, small, deadly. "We work in very different directions," I said. Then I moved on to the next question like I hadn't just been gutted in public. Later that night in my hotel room, I replayed the moment on a loop. Every clip, every social media caption. They were already linking me to my mother's foundation, painting us as a power family. The kind that hosted galas, not the kind that severed daughters like loose threads. Then came the voice message. I almost didn't open it, but the preview read, "LOL, this is too good." Marley's voice filled my suite like a bad perfume. She's like a glorified ATM, cold, rich, alone. A pause, then laughter, from someone else in the room with her. Maybe Linda, maybe a friend. Didn't matter. I didn't cry. I saved the file, archived it in a folder labeled Leverage, and deleted it from my phone. I sat at the edge of the bed, looked at the mirror across the room, and waited for something to crack. Nothing did. "They taught me to be quiet," I whispered. "They just didn't expect I'd turn silence into a weapon." I opened my laptop and created a new document. At the top, I typed 3 words, Mitchell closing terms. The headlines didn't surprise me. Cold Queen stays silent on family ties. Legal heiress or estranged daughter. Clickbait dressed in professional grammar. The clip from the Quanda had gone viral overnight. Most of them cropped my answer, twisted my words, ran with whatever narrative they wanted. But the comment that really stuck was from Marley. She'd posted a boomerang of herself sipping champagne on her Instagram story. The caption said, "Some people destroy because they can't heal. Some people just do the work." Subtle as a knife to the throat, no direct tag, no confrontation, just a surgical slice cloaked in virtue signaling. She knew exactly what she was doing, and it worked. Jolene walked in without knocking, face pale. "I need to show you something." She slid her phone across my desk. "Linda called me. Yesterday." The voicemail began with faux warmth. "Jolene, sweetheart, how are you?" Before slipping into strategy. "She's going to blow this out of proportion," Linda whispered. "She always does. Just keep her grounded. You know how Raylene is, emotional." Then she simmers down. "Kan bilon chiu thiet chut kong kong chet. No se lai guang dai thoi." I pressed pause. Jolene didn't speak. Neither did I. I stared at my coffee. Still hot, untouched. The surface shimmered, a mirror that didn't lie. "Forward it to my private line," I said finally. She nodded, silent. In that moment, something inside me restructured. It wasn't rage. I'd passed that exit miles ago. This was something colder, cleaner, like the click of a well-oiled lock sliding into place. I opened the cabinet drawer to my left and pulled out an old folder labeled Mitchell Holdings, Lake Estate. I hadn't touched it in 4 years. Until now. They thought silence was surrender, that by not reacting I'd consented. What they never understood, what they never cared to learn, was that silence is also design. It's blueprint, foundation. "They expect silence," I whispered. "This time they'll get structure." I buzzed legal. Full due diligence on lake property. I want tax maps, waterline easements, utility comps, everything. And for what purpose? My assistant asked. I smiled without humor. We're preparing for a closing. I ended the call and opened a new file on my screen. The cursor blinked like it was holding its breath. They had erased me in whispers, in boardrooms and brunches, in back-channel calls and Sunday dinners. If they thought I'd been quiet this long because I was weak, they've never really known me. Jolene didn't knock. She never did when the world was about to tip sideways. She walked in with a flash drive in one hand and a note in the other. Didn't say a word, just placed them both on the table and left. The door clicked behind her like a seal tightening. The note read, in her careful, all-caps handwriting, "I'll stand behind whatever comes next." I clicked the file open. More voicemails. More proof. Marley whining about how unfair I was. Linda coaching her on how to spin the voice note leak. The tone was sickly sweet. All concern on the surface, all strategy underneath. Let her stew a little. Then we can circle back and offer her something to make her feel involved. Maybe the wedding invite? She'll bite at that. I closed the laptop. The next day, an ivory envelope arrived. Marley's handwriting. I didn't even open it immediately. Some part of me already knew. When I did, it confirmed everything I suspected. "You're invited," it said in gold foil. "Would love to have you there. If you still have pull at Haven on the Lake, we'd love a sister discount for the venue." That wasn't reconciliation. It was a transaction. I rolled the card between my fingers like it might catch fire. Later that afternoon, Jolene stood at my office door again, but this time with a look. "She tried to book the lake venue," she said. "The one we were holding for next summer." My stomach didn't drop. My pulse didn't spike. Of course she had. "She knew?" I asked. Jolene nodded. "She called the coordinator directly, used your name to try and get priority access." I didn't blink. "Cancel everything? Pull our stake?" She hesitated. "What do you want to do with the date?" I stood, walked over to the window, and looked out toward Lake Union. "Reassign it. Carter Strategies Executive Retreat. Mandatory attendance." She gave a small nod and turned to go. Before she reached the door, I added, "And Jolene?" She looked back. No one borrows from me twice and walks away with my blessing. That evening, I sat down with my legal team. We opened the Mitchell property folder. This wasn't about the wedding anymore. This was about reclaiming every inch they had paved over with their version of reality. The room was sterile, glass, leather, polished wood, but the energy had teeth. "Let's go over the closing package again," I said. "What's the final condition for release of title?" one of the associates asked. I smiled. "If they want a ceremony so badly..." I tapped the edge of the contract. "Let's give them one, at the negotiation table." The envelope was cream, thick, and overpriced. Marley's signature aesthetic. My assistant dropped it on my desk without a word. The corner of it curled like it already knew I wouldn't open it with care. Inside was a check, a sizable one. It didn't cover everything, but it covered enough to make a point. There was no note, no explanation, just ink and arrogance. I laughed once, short, bitter. Of course it was a check. That's how Marley loved, in receipts. Not apologies, not accountability, just numbers. I stared at it for a minute, then placed it face down on my desk and called Marley. "I want 10 minutes, I said when she answered. "Face to face, at my office, tonight." She arrived late, like always, in beige heels and fake humility. "I'm here, aren't I?" she said as she sat down, like that alone deserved gratitude. I didn't waste time. I slid the check across the table. "You sent this," I said. "You could have sent a sentence." She tilted her head. "This is me trying. Isn't this what you wanted?" I studied her. The way she crossed her legs, the way she avoided my eyes. The same trick she used on our parents. The same act that worked for so long. "I'll cash it," I said calmly, "but I won't call you." Her face twisted, but I didn't let her speak. "I'll accept the money," I continued, "but I won't accept the relationship." She blinked. "Ray." I picked up a legal pad and drew a bold line through the middle. It cut across the page like a scar. "No war, Marley," I said, tearing the sheet in half. "Just a border, and you're on the other side now." I folded my half of the page, placed it into my briefcase, and stood. She didn't move. "You said once that I was cold," I added, slipping on my coat. But you forget, ice only forms when the warmth has been drained long enough. She didn't follow me out. I stepped into the rain without opening my umbrella, letting it soak through my collar, my sleeves, my certainty. It felt like something had ended, and in that wet silence, I exhaled, for the first time in years. Now it's just me, I whispered. From the ridge above Lake Sammamish, the morning light broke like glass, sharp, deliberate, clean. I stood there, boots in wet grass, watching the fog lift off the lake like smoke being exhaled by something ancient. Their house was almost finished now. The porch was painted, the landscaping trimmed into sterile perfection. From this angle, it looked like a photo in a retirement brochure. Peaceful, prestigious, hollow. I unzipped the leather folder in my hand and pulled out the final site plan. My pen clicked like a verdict. Phase 2 is a go, I told the architect. Push the permits, break ground by April. He didn't ask who would be living next door. No one did. My name wasn't attached to anything publicly. The LLC on record belonged to a holding company headquartered in Nevada, layered and silent, just like I wanted. They wouldn't know I was their neighbor until the fences were up, and by then, the shadow would already be cast. 6 months earlier, I'd considered naming the project Harold's Haven. It had felt right at the time, a quiet tribute, a way to reclaim what had been stolen. But then I remembered what he used to say. You don't build a legacy by putting your name on things, he told me once when I was a teenager. You build it by putting your name on people who never forget who helped them stand. So I withdrew the name. Quietly. No announcement, no plaque. Just a void where recognition used to matter. He didn't need marble. He had me. Back at the office, I met with legal. We finalized the documents, clean and untraceable. The house was theirs, the one they thought they earned. And this development, my development, would be the monument they never saw coming. I want the transfer to go smoothly, I said. Of course, my associate nodded. Should we include your name anywhere on the closing notice? No. I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. But make sure it's registered under Carter Strategies' long-term investment arm. That way, if anyone digs, they'll know exactly what they missed. That afternoon, I returned to my private archive, opened the file labeled Exterior Branding Lake Project, and stared at the engraved bronze nameplate, Harold's Haven. I ran my thumb across the raised letters once. Then I shut the lid, sealed the box, and shelved it. Legacy doesn't need a spotlight, it just needs to survive. Some things don't need a label to last forever. I didn't go to the housewarming. Jolene texted me a photo from her car. Victor shaking hands with a neighbor. Linda in a powder blue dress, holding a champagne flute like it meant something. You could almost hear her voice through the image. Isn't it lovely? We're finally home. I zoomed in just for a moment to see the front steps. The bricks were new, the flower beds manicured, but the house still had that familiar hollowness. Beauty, sure, but no warmth, no soul. I looked away. The next morning I found the letter. Cream envelope. Slanted cursive I knew too well. I didn't open it immediately, I didn't need to. When I did, it said what I expected. I know this isn't enough, but if you ever want to talk, your mother. That was it. No accountability, no reference to the trust or the house or Marley, just fog. Dense, curated fog. I read it twice. Then carefully, I folded it along its original creases and walked to the drawer near my window. Inside were a few artifacts I kept for reasons I didn't always understand. My London Law School acceptance letter, yellowing at the edges. A photo of Grandpa Harold with a post-it he once scribbled, "Give her bricks." I placed the envelope next to them and shut the drawer. Not burned, not answered, but placed. I moved to the window and cracked it open. The breeze off Lake Sammamish hit my skin and curled into the room, wrapping itself around the base of my spine. The silence didn't stretch. It settled, like something claiming space for the first time in years. I watched the wind ripple through the trees across the water, and I let myself say what I'd been thinking since the first contract was signed. I didn't win, I didn't lose, I just stopped playing their game. Behind me, my desk waited, stacked with the next round of documents, the next acquisition, the next build. I sat down, uncapped a pen, and signed my name on the first page. Legacy isn't what they leave you. It's what you choose not to pass on. Some scars never leave. They just learn how to breathe under your skin, quiet but present. If you followed this story from the beginning, you know this wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming a name, a place, a voice that was once erased. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's power. It's choosing peace over proving a point. And no matter how late it feels, it's never too late to start writing your own terms. So let me ask you, have you ever had to let go of someone you thought you couldn't live without? Have you ever chosen silence, not because you had nothing to say, but because you finally knew your worth? If this story touched something in you, drop a 1 in the comments or tell me where you're watching from. And if it didn't resonate, that's okay too. Share why. Your voice matters here. If you believe in stories that heal, challenge, and reflect our real lives, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. I'm Raylene, and this chapter is closed. But yours? Yours might be just beginning.